You're listening to The Real Truth About You, and I'm your host, Will Sinclair, and welcome to the show. This is a show where we journey together to discover our real selves, our true selves, so that we can live an abundant, a full, and a very, very blessed life. Have you ever heard of the Serenity Prayer? The Serenity Prayer. It's a prayer that it goes like this. Lord, and yeah, you don't have to believe in God, but I do. So anyway, it goes, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's quite a prayer. Lord, grant me the serenity, like the peace, the acceptance to accept the things I cannot change, the courage, like the fortitude to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. They said King Solomon was probably one of the wisest men in the Bible. He was the one that prayed. Instead of praying for money, he prayed for wisdom. And God gave him wisdom. It says that God was very pleased with him. And I guess wisdom is something that you should really seek after. And it says that knowledge protects wisdom. So I guess when you're seeking wisdom, wisdom is something that is born from knowledge, born from experience, born from heart. It's something that I don't think you can just attain totally on your own. I don't think it's something you're born with. I think it's something that you journey towards accomplishing and achieving and attaining. Wisdom is something that all your experiences together, everything about your life all come together, and the knowledge about your life, the knowledge about life in general. And not just knowledge about life, but the right knowledge and the right assessment. And I think that's where wisdom comes in, and why I think wisdom is more of a divine intervention, a divine gift, rather than based on experiences. We've all had life-altering experiences, or we've all burned our hands, or we don't all have burned our hands, but when you burn your hand on a stove, you learn not to put your hand on a hot stove anymore, right? That's kind of a basic instinct. Kids learn that, and that would be a wise thing. Don't put your hand in a fire. That would be a wise thing too. But what about somebody that hurt you as a child, and you go through life saying, well, I'm not going to trust anybody like that again? What if you go through life thinking that, especially if you are sexually abused, and I really apologize to anybody who's been sexually abused or abused in any kind of way, and you feel that that was what love was, or people say that's what love is, and you hear also innocent comments about like parents who've died, young children, or somebody died, and somebody says, well, God loved them so much that he took them up to heaven. And immediately the child says, well, if that's love, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And that's like Tina Turner's song, what's love got to do with it? And so that child grows up thinking that's what real love is. If that's what real love is and it hurts that much, then they don't want any part of it. So when real love comes along, or the opportunity to experience real love comes along, and it's not accepted, and the answer is no, I'm not going to take that, because I learned through experience as a child, this is not what it's about. I'm not going to accept this kind of love, or I'm not going to accept someone who does this good thing for me, because when I was a child, all they did was, when they did something, they wanted something in return. And so if you've learned that, is it wisdom to say, so I'm going to choose not to do that, or not to accept your love, or not to accept the love of somebody else, or not to accept a loving gift from someone because they expect something else in return? Is that wisdom? Or is that wisdom? Or is that a coping mechanism based on an experience that wasn't right? That's why I think that true wisdom is something that comes from God. God always says that man's ways are so low compared to his ways. Man's greatest wisdom is like but foolishness to God. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. We have to pray for that wisdom. We have to pray like King Solomon, and I'm preaching like a Christian right now, and maybe you agree or maybe you don't agree. And that's your prerogative. If you choose to turn this off, that's up to you. But you know what? There's wisdom in a lot of books. There's in the Christian Bible. There's, there's so even the Buddhists have things that are so wise and enlightening that we can learn from. And there's so many things that we toss aside that we can gain from just because we label everything. And that's just a side note. But I'm talking about wisdom being from the divine, from God. And we have base, I would guess, experiences in life. And we build those experiences in life, and then we build up our imaginings, I guess, of what life is all about, or our interpretation, I should say, of what life is all about and what it means and how we should respond to different situations. We learned a lot from our parents or our guardians or from friends around us, how not to get burned or how to fall in love or how to do a million things. I used to preach things to people that I don't believe anymore. So does that mean that we're right or wrong? And does that mean the wisdom that comes from that is right or wrong? I believe true wisdom is something that comes through your spirit, something that comes from within, from God within you. And you have to tap into that. Your knowledge and your experiences can work towards benefiting that process. But I really believe that you have to connect with the God within you. And probably one of the best ways to do that is through, some people call it meditation, some people call it contemplation. But it's basically sitting down in the silence of the moment, listening to yourself breathe, and asking God for your experience of him, to experience him in fullness in your life. And when you connect with God in this way, through meditation, through the quiet, I don't think we can really connect with God in the busyness of life. But it's in those quiet moments, the quietness, the whisper of the air, that we can truly listen and hear God in our lives. And you may sit like me, and I usually sit down and I start by listening to myself breathe. You can breathe in and you can breathe out, nice long breaths. And you can actually hear yourself breathing. And that notion, that thing about listening to yourself breathe, when you listen to yourself breathe, you don't really think. But so often I go off and my head is just filled with thoughts about life, about things, about did I lock the door, did I do this, did I do that, or what about the future, and what about today, and what about this, and I wonder what that means. And then I have to come back and I have to sit and I have to listen to my breathing and focus back in on nothingness. Because everything is a distraction. And there's so much in our life that is just pure ego, our own ego, and the things that distract us away from God. I'm not saying ego is bad. Ego is a part of life. But there's an actual definition of ego that we'll go into in another time. But right now, I'm talking about, how do you get wisdom in your life? How do you get that serenity to accept the things that you cannot change? How do you get that courage, that inner drawing strength, that courage to change the things that you can, And how do you get that wisdom to know the difference? And I really believe that when you connect to God within you over a period of time, that God will show you what you need. He will show you or connect with you in ways that you would never fathom. There's spiritual graces that will come through meditation and contemplation, through sitting. You will, even though the act itself may instill some peace in you, I usually get a sense of peace after I've meditated or during my meditation, but not always. But you'll get a sense of peace. And you'll also, through your daily routines, your daily life, you'll come across things. Maybe it's a magazine article, and maybe it's a book, or maybe it's something you saw on YouTube, or maybe it's something that God will place in your life or a person. And through all those experiences, God will grace you with this wisdom, like the wisdom of Solomon. Like, I don't think that King Solomon got all his wisdom all in one shot. And I don't believe he got wise because of all of his actions and his experiences in life. I believe when God asked him what he wanted, and he said wisdom, then God gave him that gift of wisdom. But it's like anything. It's like when you ask God for patience, God doesn't really give you patience. He gives you trying situations that make you want to just scream, and you think, oh my, I prayed for patience. What the heck's going on here? And through it all, God's trying to teach you how to call on that grace of patience, because it's like a grace. And the grace you use helps you each time you try. It's like wanting peace, right? Wanting peace in your household. You have to be the first to bring it. If you want peace in your house, you have to be one of the first to bring it. And so that peace comes about from actions that you do that are peaceful. So instead of you arguing, because you can only control you, right? You can't control what somebody else does. You might try to, but you can't. And so when you get into a situation where you can maybe argue, like I can argue with my wife. I went through the last podcast and I've been talking about how I've been nitpicking my wife almost to death, not to death, but to distraction, and it was getting to be a real issue. And I came into the awareness of why I was doing that. But still, I had to physically not argue. I had to physically not nitpick. If I came across a situation where I nitpicked, then I would have to apologize and start again. And next time, hopefully, I didn't do that. But it's through that grace comes, that grace of love, that some people call it divine energy, peace, something that God can only give. And when we act in love and do loving things and acting loving ways, we are acting in the ways of God. And when you act in the ways of God, you are using and calling upon, without realizing even, the graces or the energies of God. So I would encourage you to take time and contemplate in your life, meditate in your life. Even if it's 5 minutes of sitting quietly and not really thinking about anything. It's like you're taking time and you're slowing it down. You're slowing down time to meet with a timeless God. That's the only way I can describe it. And it's in that quiet moment, the quietness of your heart, that God will truly speak to you. When we get too busy and too loud with our lives, when things get rushed all around us and we're always all over the place, I'm not saying God that can't talk to us, or we can't experience that peace, or we can't enjoy that grace, because we're still living life and we're humans and we live humanity in its fullness with all its pain and its suffering and all its joys and its pleasures. We enjoy life and its humanity. But when we want to connect with God, we need to take that time aside. Look at your phone, your cellular phone. At least in 2016, we still have cellular phones. And we have to plug them in to charge them. We have to plug them into the wall to allow the electricity that's produced somewhere else that flows through all these wires, comes through the wall, through the plug, and into our cell phones and charges our cell phones. We are the same way. We have to plug into God to be able to get recharged, so to speak, by God. To be able to ground ourselves back in God, in the divine, in peace, in serenity, in courage, and in wisdom. We attain all that when we take the time to recharge and connect with God. Now, I know when you take a cell phone and you play with it and you game with it while it's still connected in, it'll still recharge, but it'll take a lot longer because you're also taking that energy to do things with. So you need to take the time to just sit, to just be still and know that I am God. And when it says be still in the Christian Bible and know that I am God, it's not just about being still in the moment. It's not just about being quiet and taking time aside. To be still is a sense of stillness, of peace that you get throughout your life. When arguments don't become as big as they usually are. When things that used to charge you up and get you mad somehow don't get you as mad or don't get you mad at all. This is what you get. This is what happens when you spend more time in the quiet with God. It's like a recharge. Anyway, I just love that prayer, and I love the things it can conjure up. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I pray a special blessing upon you today, that you would be anointed with God's grace, with His peace, with His divine energy, that it would overflow in abundance in your life today. That if you're going through troubled times, if you're going through issues in your life, that you would be blessed through just sitting in the quiet and letting God be God. Let God take control of your life. I'm Will Sinclair, and you've been listening to The Real Truth About You. And I'm finding more and more the real truth about you is God. And you can get more downloads from therealtruthaboutyou.com and get more episode downloads for different shows. You can get some more resources. You can email us at support@therealtruthaboutyou.com, or you can go to the website and you can fill in the contact form. Do me a favor. Would you share this episode with somebody? Would you download it for them? Would you put it on a memory stick for them? Would you burn it on a CD for them? Would you email the link for them? Whatever you need to do, if you feel somebody needs to hear this message and experience it, and experience His power of peace and strength, of serenity and courage and wisdom in their life, would you share this message with them? I'm Will Sinclair, and I'm saying I love you lots. Be blessed to bits. And you know what? Have an awesome, awesome day, because you rock.